If you are considering a career in tax or accounting, you may be looking at the different professional designations that you can earn to kind of boost up your resume. But for sure, you want to be intentional and make sure that the additional letters behind your name make sense. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about enrolled agents versus CPAs in 2025. Now, I do want to give this disclaimer. For choosing a career path and designation, you have to make the choice that makes the most sense for you. In this video, I'm not saying that one credential is better than the other. Instead, what I'm doing for those of you who may be exploring those as two different options is letting you know what the differences are. This is something that I didn't even have to take into consideration when I was going through college and looking at this path because I didn't even know what an enrolled agent was until after I had graduated from college and after I had spent 3 seasons with a CPA firm. Okay. So informational only. I love my EA friends just as well as I love my CPA friends. Some of the best tax minds that I know and those that have been my mentors are CPAs. So now that we have that out of the way, I've done a video before about EA versus CPA, but that was prior to some of the changes that they've made with the CPA exam. So I want to talk about that for a little bit as well. I do have some notes right here from a reliable resource, Becker, which creates study guides to help people pass the CPA exam. And I will be referring to this over here. So I wanted you all to know you do have my full attention. I just need to look at some of the updates while we're here. All right. So with these two designations, there are some areas of service and expertise that are going to overlap. And then there are going to be some that are completely separate. So let's start with the EA license, okay? The enrolled agent. This is a federal license that is awarded by the Internal Revenue Service. With that being said, an enrolled agent is not restricted by state with who they can represent. They can represent with unlimited representation rights in any IRS office, in with any IRS matter, right? Now, if we look at a CPA, that license is through the state, not the Internal Revenue Service. And while taxes are one function that they are qualified to do, all CPAs don't do taxes. CPAs, looking at an area of overlap, also have unlimited representation rights as far as taxes are concerned with the Internal Revenue Service. Okay. But when we're looking at that being a state designation, there may be some functions of a CPA that they can't perform as far as practicing in other states because each state gets to regulate the continuing education requirements of their CPAs. They also will call into play who can do what. For example, if we look at the state of New York, not everyone can prepare a tax return in the state of New York. You have to be one of their licensed professionals. Now, just so happens that enrolled agents are exempt from that. Thank you for those advocating for enrolled agents. So we don't have to take additional testing. But New York tax state law is drastically different from where I am at in Louisville, Kentucky. So, with that being said, one of the things, even when we're looking at taxes, that states have the right to do is restrict practice in their state because of different laws and protecting the constituents of those states. So, when we look at the differences again in education requirements, when I was looking at becoming a CPA here in the state of Kentucky. I went to Bellarmine University, go Knights, in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had to have 150 credit hours with an accounting degree. And I also had to have time that I had worked under a CPA, which I more than met the qualification because I worked 3 years with a firm that had just gone international, if you are familiar with my story. If you're not familiar with my story and you're new here, I apologize for not introducing myself. My name is Timolyn Bowens, and I am America's favorite EA. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, in addition to representing taxpayers and fighting the IRS for them, is being able to inform and educate other tax professionals about the enrolled agent designation and empowering them to help taxpayers as well. And that's the only reason I'm doing this video. If you're interested in learning more about my story, I want to encourage you to head over to Spotify and subscribe to my newest podcast, My Enrolled Agent Career. In the first 4 episodes, I'll be sharing my journey of becoming an enrolled agent. And then I have a lineup of 26 phenomenal enrolled agents that will be joining me as guests to share their experience as well. Okay? Now, let's get back to the topic at hand here, EA versus CPA in 2025. As I mentioned with those education requirements and those work requirements, the EA license is drastically different. A college degree is not required. And with that being said, it's implied an accounting degree is not even required. Now, I will say this, if you intend to become an enrolled agent and work with businesses, I highly recommend that you at least get an accounting certificate or take an accounting 101, because if you try to service businesses and you have no accounting background, you will 100% be lost, and you'll end up doing them more harm than good. So you do want to make sure that you have that basis covered. But as I was saying, the education requirements are drastically different. Now, that was way back. I was in college in 2008. Now we have this huge gap within the accounting industry, and students aren't being attracted to becoming accounting majors, to working in this industry. Unfortunately, we are known for working hard, burning out, and not being compensated well for that. In addition to that, we have the demographic cliff where people just stopped having babies. So the accounting industry is in trouble. And to try to combat that, we have people that are advocating for the education requirements to not be as high to be able to sit for the EA exam. Now, because I'm not a CPA, I'm not following this as much, I will say please use me as a point of reference, like to go do your research. I do know that one podcast that covers this, though, is, I believe it's the accounting podcast, and I will go find that and link it down below. Whenever there are states that have become more lenient on that education requirement, they talk about it on that podcast to help people stay up to date. Okay. Now, as I said, I also had to work under a CPA in a firm. With the EA exam, you don't, which makes it less of a barrier to get the license. But again, I would strongly encourage you to still work under someone in a tax firm, even if it's not an EA firm, even if it's not a CPA firm, if it is a franchise or something of this sort, so that you get that experience and that you actually know what you're doing and that you don't do more harm than good to the taxpayer. If you do have aspirations of starting your own enrolled agent firm, I do have a free community. I'll link that down below, because you definitely need community and mentorship if you're going to do this and do it successfully. Okay. Now, the next part about the EA exam and the CPA exam, and this is what I looked at when I was choosing between the two. And I'm probably will still go back and take the CPA exam. So, again, I'm not saying one's better than the other, it's just a personal desire and endeavor. When I was looking at these exams, I had already done 3 busy seasons. I had worked with FI, so financial institutions, publicly traded companies. I had done major partnerships, S corps, and I realized something about myself. I love tax law. I was an absolute tax nerd. But when I looked at the CPA exam, there are 4 main parts and only maybe a fourth of one of them actually covered tax law. And with me being intentional and being a lifetime learner, I said that's not really relevant to what I want to do. I know that I never want to go into audit. And when I say that, I mean auditing companies, small businesses, banks, whoever. I will represent a client in an audit. So scratch off for CPA, I can do that with the EA exam. With the CPA license, I would have unlimited rights to represent taxpayers. However, there would be a lot of additional stuff that I would have to learn in order to pass the exam, which I felt at the time was unnecessary. And it was unnecessary, right? Also, there would be continuing education and things that have to do with my state and things that weren't relevant to tax. Whereas with the EA exam, it's not 4 parts, it's 3 parts, and each of those 3 parts covers a different area of tax law and tax law only. Even Section 3, or I should say Special Enrollment Exam 3, which covers representation, practice, and procedure. Even though it's not actually doing a tax return that it's covering, it's still a part of tax law that applies to what I do. Now, back when I was in college, there were 4 parts to the CPA exam. There still are, but there were 4 parts that everybody had to take. There was FAR, which is financial accounting and reporting. We had AUD, which was auditing and attestation. We had reg, which is regulation, and then we had BC, which is business environment and concepts. And the small little portion of tax was in the reg section. And I was like, absolutely not. I found what I love. This is unnecessary. Let me go look at this. Now, if you are someone who's interested in tax and you also want to work a lot with like state and local issues, the CPA exam may be a better path now because of the way they expanded it. So you still have to take 4 parts, but now instead of everyone taking the same 4 parts, there are 3 core parts. We still have FAR, which is the financial accounting and reporting. We still have AUD, which is the auditing and attestation. We now have REG has been switched to cover more taxation and regulation. Okay. So had it been this way in 2008 and when I got ready to like sit for an exam, maybe I would have gone the CPA route instead. I don't know. Now, with this new setup, like I said, the 3 core areas, we also have areas of discipline that a CPA can choose to focus in, and that's what they would take their 4th test in. The 3 areas are business analysis and reporting, so BAR. We have ISC, which is information systems and controls, which is important in any area of tax or accounting, right? And now we have TCP, which is tax compliance and planning. So now, in my opinion, if you choose to go that discipline of tax compliance and planning, the CPA exam can equip you better and show that, hey, you are qualified to do the research in tax law. You're qualified to be that tax expert. Whereas before, again, I'm not downplaying the difficulty of the CPA exam. I'm not downplaying that some of the best tax minds in the world are CPAs. What I'm saying is that if you actually understood the CPA exam, you would understand that the CPA exam doesn't automatically mean you're an expert in tax law because it's not covering tax law, right? For me, at the time, the enrolled agent exam did because it covered only tax law. So now that I've explained the difference between the two exams, I've kind of talked about how they overlap, I've kind of talked about how they're different. Here's the thing that you need to decide: which one is right for you? If you want to do tax preparation, tax planning, and represent taxpayers with unlimited representation rights, but maybe you don't have a degree, so that was kind of deterring you from, going into the tax industry, the enrolled agent license may be perfect for you. If you're somebody who likes learning in a college environment, you want to go get the experience under the CPA firm, you also are interested in maybe later doing not audited, auditing of businesses and that type of thing, then maybe for you, the CPA exam is the better route, right? It all depends on which one is going to fit your career desires the best. And there's nothing wrong if you decide that you want to go and get both. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please drop them down below in the comments. And I hope that if you have aspirations of starting an enrolled agent firm, you'll join my free community, How to Start an Enrolled Agent Firm, and the email list, which I also have linked down below. See you in the next video.